Good morning, students. Today we are going to see Unit 13 Water Part 2. Students, in last session we discussed about composition of water, electrolysis of water, preparation of water, physical properties of water. Do you remember, students? Yes, let us recall once again. We need water for so many activities like cooking, washing, cleaning, irrigation. Without water, there would be no life on the earth. So, water is very essential in our life. Composition of water. 3/4 of our planet Earth is filled with water. Water exists in 3 states. What are they? Solid, gas, liquid. Right? Water on the surface of the earth is found mainly in ocean, 97.25%. Our body is made up of 65% of water, but it is not apparent. Water is a chemically stable compound. The chemical name of water is dihydrogen monoxide. That is H2O. This is a molecular formula of water, H2O. This H2O can be broken up into hydrogen and oxygen when an electric current is passed through it, right? So the process of breaking down of water molecules, that is H2O, by the passage of electric current is known as electrolysis of water. What is electrolysis? Electrolysis is the process of using electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Do you follow, students? Let us see preparation of water. Water was first prepared in 1781 by an English scientist, Henry Cavendish. He discovered hydrogen gas when active metals like zinc reacted with sulfuric acid. The hydrogen gas evolved. The hydrogen gas released was highly inflammable and burned to form a colorless product called water. So the hydrogen gas released was highly inflammable and burned to form a colorless product called water. Water is also produced by the reduction of metal oxide by hydrogen burning of hydrogen in air and burning of hydrocarbons in air. Respirations of plants and animals also released water. See here, glucose combined with oxygen gives carbon dioxide and water. This is the process of respiration of plants and animals. Next, characteristic of potable water. Potable water should be colorless and odorless. It should be transparent. It should be free from harmful microorganisms such as bacteria, virus, and protozoa. It should be free from suspended impurities. It should contain some minerals and salts necessary for our body and some dissolved gases to add taste. Water has some important properties which are familiar to us, but these properties are unique to water. Let us see physical properties and chemical properties of water. First, physical properties of water. Nature of water. Pure water is clear and transparent liquid. It is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. Boiling point of water. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius at the atmospheric pressure. At this temperature, water boils and changes to steam. The boiling point of water increases which increase in pressure. So what is the boiling point of water? 100 degrees Celsius. Let us see one example. When a pressure cooker is heated, a high pressure built inside it. The high pressure increases the boiling point of water. So, the water remains a liquid at high temperature. What is that? Greater than 100 degrees Celsius in the cooker. This cooks the food faster. Next, freezing point. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and forms ice. The freezing point of water is 0 degrees Celsius. The freezing point of water decreases with increase in pressure. Next, density of water. When ice cubes are put in a glass of water at room temperature, they float on the surface of the water, isn't it? Yes, this is because ice is lighter than water. It means that the density of ice is lower than that of water. Next, anomalous expansion of water. For the same mass of ice and of water, the volume of ice is more than that of water. Both are same mass. What are they? Ice and water. But the volume is different to each other. In the Himalayas, the temperature can go down even below 0 degrees Celsius. The water in a water pipes will freeze at this temperature to ice. If the pipes are not strong, they can crack, develop leaks or even burst. This is because freezing point of water will cause an expansion in the volume because the volume of ice is more than that of water. So only these pipe expansions, right? Next, latent heat of fusion of ice. Take some amount of ice cubes in a beaker and place a thermometer in it. Now heat the beaker. The thermometer will not register any rise temperature till all the ice melts. The question arises, where does the heat energy go? If there is no rise in temperature, right? The heat energy is utilized in changing the state of ice from solid to liquid. The amount of heat energy required by ice to change into water is called latent heat of fusion of ice. Ice has the highest latent heat of fusion, that is 80 calories per gram or 336 joule per gram. So what is latent heat of fusion of ice? The amount of heat energy required by ice to change into water is called latent heat of fusion. Do you follow, students? Next, latent heat of vaporization. So the temperature remains constant during boiling. Where that heat will go? Yes, the heat energy is utilized in changing the state of ice from solid to liquid. When water attains a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, it starts changing its states from liquid to gas state. However, the temperature of water does not rise above 100 degrees Celsius. It is because the supplied heat energy only changing the state of the boiling point. This heat energy is stored in steam and is commonly called latent heat of vaporization of steam. So, the amount of heat energy that is required to change 1 kg of liquid into vapors at atmospheric pressure at its boiling point is called latent heat of vaporization. Next, specific heat capacity. The specific heat capacity of a substance is the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of 1 kg of the substance by 1 degree Celsius. That is specific heat capacity. The symbol of specific heat capacity is C. C is equal to del E by m del theta. So del E is nothing but amount of energy. So thus amount of energy is equal to mc del theta. M is nothing but mass. C specific heat capacity. The unit of specific heat capacity is joule per kilogram degree Celsius. Del E is change in thermal energy. Unit is joule. Del theta change in temperature, that is degree Celsius. Due to this high specific heat capacity, water takes time to become hot as well as to cool down. Thus, water can absorb a lot of heat and retain it for a longer time. This property of water is used to cool engines. So, water is circulated around car engine using the radiator pump and the heat is absorbed. Thus, the engine is protected from getting too hot. Do you understand, students? Students, in this session, we are going to discuss about chemical properties of water, water a universal solvent, purification of water, hardness of water, water pollution, sources of water pollution, types of pollutants, and controlling water pollution. These topics are covered the page number 143 to 152 in our textbook. Let us see one by one. First, chemical properties of water. Action towards litmus paper. Pure water is neutral and it shows no action towards litmus paper. The pH of water is 7. So that is neutral position. Next, stability of water. Water is a very stable compound. It is difficult to break it apart into its component. 100 degrees Celsius boils and evaporates. 0 degrees Celsius freezes and expands. 4 degrees Celsius water's density is at its highest range. Next, water reacts with metal. Water reacts with some metals. Metals such as sodium, potassium, calcium, etc. react vigorously with water at room temperature. Sodium reacts with water to form sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Due to the heat evolved in this reaction, the hydrogen gas catches fire and burns. Let us see some other examples. Metals react with cold water. So, metal is sodium. Sodium react with cold water. It gives sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. So, metal react with hot water. That metal is magnesium. Magnesium react with hot water. It gives magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Iron metal react with steam, that is 1H2O. It gives iron 2 oxide and hydrogen gas. 2 iron, that is 2Fe react with 3H2O. It gives iron 3 oxide and hydrogen gas. Iron react with 4H2O. It gives iron 2 and 3 oxide and hydrogen gas. Water react with non-metals. Non-metals generally do not react with water. Rather, some non-metals which react with air vigorously are stored in water. Let us see. So, generally non-metals do not react with dilute acid. Note that. So, reaction with non-metals. Red hot carbon, that is coke, react with steam to produce water gas, that is carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas. So the carbon react with steam at 1000 degrees Celsius. It gives carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas. Chlorine gas dissolves in water and produces hydrochloric acid. So 2Cl2 plus 2H2O. In the presence of sunlight, it gives hydrochloric acid and oxygen. Do you understand, students? Next, we move to water, the universal solvent. A solvent is a substance which dissolves other substance, that is solute. See here. Here H2O is a water. The water is a solvent. NaCl is a salt. The salt is the solute. So the water dissolves the solute, that is salt, right? Water dissolves more substance than any other liquid. The bent molecule shapes make it polar. It gives the oxygen atom a partial positive charge and hydrogen atoms partial positive charge. So this is positive charge, this is negative charge. The partial charges attract parts of polar molecule to dissolve them. Here sodium is positive charge, chlorine is negative charge. So this positive and negative attract to dissolve them. Similarly, the sodium and oxygen attract and dissolve them. Water does not dissolve non-polar molecules. So, water can dissolve solids such as salt and sugar, liquids such as honey and milk, and gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide in it. Therefore, water is called universal solvent. What is solution? Solution is nothing but a homogeneous mixture of two or more substances, that is aqueous solutions. Solvent is nothing but dissolving agent, that is water is a solvent. Solute is nothing but substance dissolved. Which substance? Dissolved by water, that is solute. Polar or charged solutes can stick to water molecules, that is dissolve. Let us see one activity. Place a sample of tap water on a clean watch glass and place it over a beaker containing water, as shown in the figure. Boil the water in the beaker. When all the water has evaporated from the watch glass, remove it from the burner and let it cool down. What do you see on the watch glass? So after evaporation, you can see a number of concentric rings of solid matter deposited on the watch glass. This is the concentric ring, right? These are the dissolved solids left behind after the evaporation of water. So salts, minerals and impurities are the solids dissolved in water. These dissolved salts are important for the following reasons. What are they? They are essential for the growth and development of plants. They add taste to water. They supply the essential minerals needed for our bodies. Most of the chemical reactions important for our living takes place in the cells of our body with the help of water. Next we move to purification of water. Out of the total fresh water available on the earth, only 1% is present in water bodies such as rivers and lakes, and the rest in frozen in glaciers and polar region. Water from these water bodies is unfit for drinking, cooking, washing or bathing because it contains suspended and dissolved impurities. It also contains microorganisms such as bacteria. If this water is consumed without purifying, it can cause waterborne diseases. So what is waterborne disease? Diseases caused by ingestion of water contaminated by human or animal excrement which contain pathogenic microorganisms. That means any disease which is transported and supported by water is called waterborne diseases. For example, include cholera, typhoid, amoebic and facillary dysentery and other diarrheal diseases. Therefore, water should be treated and purified before it reaches our home. So, purification is very essential, right? In conventional water treatment plants, water is subjected to different process for purification. Let us see the purification methods one by one. The first process is sedimentation. Water from lakes or rivers is collected in large sedimentation tank. This is rectangular horizontal flow sedimentation tank. Sedimentation means settle down the impurities, right? It is allowed to stand undisturbed so that suspended impurities settle down at the bottom of the tank. Sometimes a chemical substance such as potash alum is added to water to speed up the process of sedimentation. This process is called loading. So what is the reason of adding potash alum? Increase the sedimentation, right? So the particles of potash alum combine with the suspended impurities and make them settle down at a faster rate. Next stage, filtration. So water from the sedimentation tank is then pumped to the filtration tank. Filtration means filter the impurities, right? Filtration tanks contain filter beds made up of gravel, sand, pebbles, activated charcoal and concrete. These are the made up of filter beds. Right? When water passes through these layers and becomes free from any remaining dissolved or suspended impurities completely. After this filtration tank, the water goes to chlorination tank, that is sterilization process takes place here. The filter water is treated chemically to remove the remaining germs or bacteria. This process is called sterilization. The chemicals that are used in this process are chlorine and ozone. Chlorine and ozone chemicals are used in this tank. Right? The water from filtration tank is pumped into chlorination tanks where chlorine is added to remove harmful bacteria and other germs. The process of adding chlorine in adequate amounts to water is called chlorinization. Ozonization is a process in which water is treated with ozone gas to kill the germs present in it. So the process is called ozonization. Do you follow, students? The sterilization of water can also be done by exposing into air and sunlight. Oxygen from the air and sunlight destroy the germs present in water. Aeration is the process in which air under pressure is blown into filtered water. This also helps to kill the germs. So finally, we get a clean water. So students, these are the methods to follow to get the purification of water. In RO purifier are the purifiers that can remove the dissolved impurities and germs. They also improve the taste of water. This method is also followed in RO purifier also. Do you follow, students? Next we move to hardness of water. Students, we use soaps and detergents to wash clothes, isn't it? Yes. They form lather with that quickness the process of removal of dirt from the cloths. Water contains a number of dissolved salts and minerals. When these salts are present in very small quantities in water, it is called soft water. See here, this is liquid soap, this is rainwater. This rainwater contains small amount of minerals and salts. So combine with both to form many foam, right? Rather form many here. So when this soap react with soft water, then only we get large amount of foam. Do you follow, students? So soft water contain very small quantities of minerals and salts. In this water, soaps or detergents form lather easily. Sometimes minerals and salts are present in water in such a large quantity that soaps or detergents form a thick precipitate called scum instead of forming lather. So see here, this is a hard water, this is a soft water. Here lather forming highly, but here scum form instead of lather. Do you follow, students? Because this water contains large quantity of minerals and salts. Such type of water is called hard water. See here, this is liquid soap, this is lime water. So lime water contain large amount of minerals and salts. So here we can see little amount of foam. Isn't it? Yes. So what is scum? When soap mixes with soft water, it forms a cloudy solution with a layer of scud on top. In hard water, soap react with calcium and magnesium ions to form a precipitate. This type of precipitate is called scum. Do you understand, students? So definition of hardness of water. The property of water to form an insoluble curd with soap instead of lather. In other words, it is the soap destroying property due to the presence of bicarbonates, sulfates and chlorides of calcium and magnesium. Let us see differentiate between hard water and soft water. Hard water does not form lather with soap easily. In soft water, form lather with soap easily. Hard water contains dissolved salts of calcium and magnesium. In soft water, does not contain dissolved salts of calcium and magnesium. More wastage of time and fuel as boiling temperature of water get increased due to impurities. In soft water, less wastage of time and fuel. In hard water, more consumption of soap by hard water. In soft water, less consumption of soap by soft water. Let us see disadvantage of hard water. Not suitable for laundry work, wastage of soap and poor cleaning. Calcium carbonate or sulfate deposit in boilers. More fuel is consumed for heating water. Corrates boiler. These are the disadvantage of using hard water. Let us see removal of hardness. Different methods are followed to remove the hardness from water depending on whether it is temporary or permanent hardness. So temporary hardness means what are the method used to remove here? Boiling, addition of lime, addition of sodium carbonate, base exchange process. In permanent hardness means these methods are used to remove of hardness. What are they? Addition of sodium carbonate, base exchange process. Let us see one by one. First, temporary hardness removal. Here boiling method is used. So chemical process of boiling hard water. Temporary hardness is easily removed from water by boiling. When heated, the calcium hydrogen carbonate decompose producing insoluble calcium carbonate. See here, we can boil water to remove temporary hardness, right? Temporary hardness in water can be easily removed by boiling. So on boiling, calcium or magnesium bicarbonate decompose to give calcium carbonate, that is insoluble calcium carbonate. This makes the hard water soft and fit for use. Next, removal of permanent hardness. First method, adding washing soda. Washing soda is used to remove permanent hardness of water. Adding washing soda converts chlorides and sulfate into insoluble carbonates. These insoluble carbonates are removed by filtration. See, calcium and magnesium ions are precipitated as insoluble carbonates which are removed by filtration. Calcium chloride plus Na2CO3 gives calcium carbonate and sodium chloride. Similarly, magnesium ion. So, MgSO4, magnesium sulfate plus Na2CO3 gives magnesium carbonate plus Na2SO4. Next, ion exchange method. Another method used to remove the hardness of water is to pass it through a column of ion exchange resin where calcium and magnesium ion get replaced by sodium ions. So the ions responsible for hardness are exchanged with ions which do not cause precipitation. Inorganic ion exchange method and organic exchange method, that is permitted ion exchange resins. So this converts hard water into soft water. Next method, distillation. Temporary and permanent hardness both can be removed by the method of distillation. Boil the water and collect pure water as the distillate. All the dissolved solids will be left behind. This is the only method to produce pure water. However, it is an expensive method because of the energy requirement. The water obtained after distillation is called distilled water. It is the purest form of water. Do you follow, students? Yes. Next, we move to water pollution. What is water pollution? Contamination of water bodies as a result of human activities is known as water pollution. Contamination of water bodies occur when harmful substances such as chemicals, sewage and wastewater are released into them. It produces physical, chemical and biological change in the quality of water. It degrades the water quality and renders it toxic to living organisms. Drinking polluted water has serious negative effects on human health. Let us see water resource in Tamil Nadu. Freshwater resources are the source of water that are useful to society for domestic, agriculture or industrial uses. These include surface and groundwater. Examples of surface water includes river, reservoirs, lakes and tanks. There are 17 major basins in Tamil Nadu. Let us see some major river basins of Tamil Nadu. Kaveri, Ponnayar, Palar, Kostalayar, Vaipar and Gundar, Tamirabarani, Nambiyar, Vaigai, Vellar and Manimuttar, Noyal. These are the major river basins of Tamil Nadu. With 61 reservoirs and approximately 41,948 tanks, lakes and tanks are traditionally used in Tamil Nadu to collect rainfall during the monsoon, which can be used throughout the year. These groundwater sources are called aquifers. Aquifers are layers below the ground made of coarse and sand and gravel that contain space allowing rainwater collection. This is the aquifer, right? The use of groundwater is possible through open wells and bore wells. These are the water resource. Next, sources of water pollution. When you look around, you can see polluted water bodies in our surrounding. You can see lot of unwanted and harmful substance such as waste and sewage thrown into them. These substances are called pollutants. These pollutants are released by various activities from different sources. In general, sources of water pollution are classified as natural source and man-made source. Let us see some sources of water pollution. First, household detergent. Household and cleaning detergent are a major cause of water pollution. Synthetic, that is non-biodegradable detergent have chemicals that do not break down and can end up polluting both surface and groundwater. Excessive use of detergent, what will happen? Adversely affect fish and other organisms. Some shampoo, face wash, toothpaste have small round pieces of plastic added to them. These are called microbeds. See here. What is the name of this? Microbeds. These microbeds present in shampoo, toothpaste, like that. They are added for different reasons like scrubbing and cleaning your skin, polishing your teeth, etc. So only they are using these microbes. But these microbes use product with microbes, they go down our drain and pollute water bodies. So fish and other animals feed them by accident and get sick. So the microbes is danger one. Do you understand, students? Next, domestic sewage. Wastewater that is disposed of from household is known as domestic sewage. Domestic sewage should be treated before being disposed of into water bodies like river, lake, etc. Untreated sewage contains impurities such as organic matter from food waste, toxic chemicals from household products, and it may also contain disease causing microbes. Next, domestic waste and plastics. Solid waste including plastic are disposed of or end up in water bodies such as lakes, rivers and the ocean. Plastics block drains spreading vector-borne disease such as malaria and dengue. Waste in water bodies negatively impact aquatic life also. These are the sources of domestic waste and plastics. Next, agricultural activities. Fertilizers, pesticides and insecticides used in agriculture, isn't it? Yes. These fertilizers can dissolve in rainwater and flow into water bodies such as rivers and lakes. This causes an excess of nutrients such as nitrates and phosphates as well as toxic chemicals in water bodies. These chemicals are mixed in water, right? So it is called eutrophication. So these substances can also harmful to aquatic life. So agriculture activity also affect the water pollution, right? Next, industrial waste. Many industries releases toxic wastes such as lead, mercury, cyanides, cadmium, etc. If this waste is unregulated and is released into water bodies, it has huge impact on humans, plant, animal and aquatic life also. Next, oil spills. Oil spills also affect water bodies. There are large crude oil and natural gas reserves below the seabed. With the increasing exploration of crude oil in the oceans, accidents in drilling and transporting oil have also increased. Oil spills cause water pollution, which is harmful to aquatic life. Next, thermal pollution. Large amount of water is used for cooling purpose in thermal and nuclear power plants and many industries also. So, the water used for cooling purpose is discharged back to a river or to original water source at a raised temperature and sometimes with chemicals. So, thermal pollution also affect water bodies. It causes a rise in temperature and decrease the amount of oxygen dissolved in water, which adversely affect the aquatic life also. These are the sources affect the water bodies. Do you follow, students? So, sources and effects of water pollution. What are they? Sewage and domestic waste, industrial waste and effluents, insecticides and pesticides, detergents and fertilizer, thermal pollution, radioactive material. Let us see types of pollutants. Pollutants are generally classified as domestic pollutants, agriculture pollutants, and industrial pollutants. The source and effects of various water pollutants are shown here. See the tabulation. Pollutants: sodium sulfates and phosphates. Sources: detergents. In domestic pollutants, in human, they cause developmental, reproductive and neurotoxicity and endocrine disruption. Phosphates make bacteria and algae grow faster and use up all the dissolved oxygen. This leads to a decrease in animal and plant diversity. Next, plastic fiber and microbeads. Source: plastic clothing and hair, beauty and skin product. So, effect. These end up in water bodies such as lake, rivers and the ocean. Here, they attract toxic chemicals. Marine animals often eat them as they confuse them as their natural source of food, and the toxin can move up the food chain. Another pollutants: DDT, dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethane. Sources: insecticides. Effect in agriculture. It affects the central nerve system of insects, animals and humans. It accumulates in the food chain and impacts the top predators the most. Next, nitrates and phosphates. Sources: fertilizers. Effects: bacteria and algae grow faster and they use up all the dissolved oxygen, and this leads to a decrease in animal and plant diversity. Next, pollutants: lead, mercury, cadmium, chromium and arsenic. Sources: chemical, textile and leather industries and leachate from open dumping of solid waste. Effects: toxic to animals, plants and bacteria in the water, pollutes potable groundwater, negatively impacts human health. These are the types of pollutants. Next, how to controlling water pollution. Water is precious and it is essential for all living organisms. But today, almost every water body is polluted with waste ranging from plastic to toxic substance. All of us can take immediate steps to save our precious water bodies from pollution. Let us see some ideas. Use detergents that are biodegradable and avoid those that contain toxic chemical. Wear clothing that is made from natural fiber such as cotton and avoid wearing synthetic fiber such as nylon, polyester, etc. Next, do not throw waste such as plastic into water bodies. Always separate your waste into recyclable, non-recyclable and biodegradable so that it does not cause pollution. Domestic wastewater should be treated properly. and all harmful substance should be removed from it. So it can be reused for flushing toilets and gardening. Use biopesticides instead of chemical pest control. Use compost made from cow dung, garden waste and kitchen waste as a fertilizer. Water released from intestines should be treated before being discharged or recycled for industrial purpose. These are the methods used to controlling water pollution. Okay students, I hope you were all understand about this lesson. Right, next we move to evaluation of this session. Define specific heat capacity. What are the causes of temporary hardness and permanent hardness of water? Explain specific latent heat of vaporization of water. How to control the water pollution? What are the methods followed of removing hardness of water? Students, write the answer for all these questions in our notebook. Thank you.